Hell's Paradise has been a breath of fresh air for me when it comes to the shonen genre. It's not like it does anything particularly crazy, but at least with modern shonen, the formula has been getting a bit stale for me. While, admittedly, every show does have its own identity, at their core, many of them are kind of the same structure-wise. Let me show you what I mean by that. My Hero Academia is a society of heroes that fights villains. Pretty standard stuff, nothing wrong with that on its own. The issue is what starts to come after that. Demon Slayer, Society of Demon Slayers who fight demons. Jujutsu Kaisen, a society of sorcerers who fight curses. Chainsaw Man, a society of devil hunters who hunt devils. And I may as well mention this one just to pile it on. Mononogatari, something that, maybe only 3 people on this planet have watched, has a clan of people who hunt the Tsukumogami. All of those shows even have a character on the side of the protagonist, or the protagonists themselves, who wield the power of the thing that they are actively fighting. Now, like I said, all of these series develop their own identity as they go on. The manga industry, especially the shonen side of things, is a difficult world to break into, so it makes sense that mangaka are trying to be safe while also putting their own spin on things, but it can be a bit draining to have the same general world concept done over and over again, and this is where Hell's Paradise comes in. Funny enough, Yuji Kaku, the mangaka for Hell's Paradise, was actually an assistant for some time with the creator of Chainsaw Man, Tatsuki Fujimoto, though this was during the days of Fire Punch. I say it's funny, not just because I mentioned Chainsaw Man previously, but also because part of my praise for Hell's Paradise actually does stem from something that I also praised in Chainsaw Man. I made a video a while back about the characters in Chainsaw Man and how they break free of the mold of the typical heroic shonen characters by being the absolute scum of the earth most of the time. Even though I still stand by everything I said in that video, it probably wasn't my best work, but this time I want to make sure that I get it right. The characters of this anime pretty much give me the same sort of refreshment that the Chainsaw Man characters did, but even then there's a slight twist to their structure as well. The whole plot of Hell's Paradise is to send criminals to an island that may or may not hold the elixir of life, and if they bring it back, they get an official pardon for their crimes. This differs from Chainsaw Man because rather than a cast of characters who are generally working towards their own selfish goals, this story puts all of the characters working towards the same goal. The issue, of course, is that only one of them can bring back the elixir. This puts these characters, who are all, for the most part, generally selfish and bad people, and gives them a solid reason to become the absolute worst versions of themselves. This creates an interesting contrast with our 2 main characters, who are both people trying to change, but the situation at hand just won't let them budge. Gabimaru wants to live in peace, but also has no choice but to kill to make it there, and Saguri wants the strength to kill when necessary, but the stress of the circumstances she's under are weighing down on her. The only downside to doing a video like this 4 episodes into the show is that I can't really break them down any more than that. Considering what we've seen though out of the first batch of episodes, I'm sure they'll continue to grow at some point during the show. But now, of course, the thing that draws me in the most, and what circles back to my point from earlier, is that the core structure of Hell's Paradise is what I needed in my life for a battle shonen. I just briefly touched on it, but the plot itself practically amounts to a battle royale of sorts. It's at least that on the surface anyway. Really, there's nothing that dictates the other characters need to fight amongst themselves, but the nature of the characters is what allows for this to actually happen. If the Shogun had just sent a group of his strongest warriors to get the elixir, there wouldn't have been much of an initial conflict. At some point, perhaps, a group of good people could all turn on each other due to the dangers of the island and survival instincts taking over, like something out of Lord of the Flies maybe, but the story likely wouldn't be able to properly set that sort of changing dynamic before the readers lost interest in what's happening. It's an interesting idea, but wouldn't survive in the current manga landscape. Having a cast of criminals makes for an interesting start, and having them at odds with each other while also dealing with the external threat of the island itself gives Hell's Paradise a crutch to lean on, as there's always something to be worried about, which keeps the reader on edge. Once again, it's built somewhat like Chainsaw Man, which uses fast pacing, yet satisfying pacing, in order to keep the reader coming back. However, rather than just being fast paced, Hell's Paradise simply always allows for a threat to be introduced at any moment given the setting. Speaking of the setting, I'd like to dive a little more into that. Of the 3 core pieces to a story, being plot, character, and setting tends to get the shorter end of the stick when it comes to credit being given to a well put together series. It makes sense, as characters, at least in my opinion, opinion, are probably the most important thing to a story, followed by a strong narrative of some kind, but some love should also be shown to the setting, as I believe a strong and interesting setting is what allows for the most interesting characters and plots. If you slap the characters and plot of Hell's Paradise onto some random island with nothing special about it, you'd be left with a fun, yet basic experience overall. There wouldn't be anything enhancing the stakes and leaving you with that feeling of tension. The hidden island that the characters travel to is set up in the first episode as odd, but we didn't really know to what extent. People who had been to the island seldom returned, and even if they did, they had been turned into a resting place for a bed of flowers. The eerie feeling just from that scene alone lingers until the island is actually reached. Not long after touching down, Gabimaru himself gives his thoughts on how odd the island is. He states that the collection of plants there just don't make any sense to be with each other. It's just a complete conglomeration of things that don't really belong. Later in that episode, Gabimaru starts to fight Suguri so that he can move on his own, but after stopping their fight, we are reminded that the danger of the island is not only limited to the people on it. The vibrant island houses most random plants, but also the most random creatures. Butterflies with human faces that stings can grow plants from your insides outward. Giants that have random forms, be it normal human features or humanoid sharks. The characters, in order to survive, have to fight back and try to make sense of an island that seems to make no sense at all. It's an intriguing backdrop for a story, and it allows the character work and plot to flourish under its guidance. Now that I've gotten the writing aspects out of the way, I do actually want to touch on the artwork for the anime. Under Studio Mappa, most people did expect this anime to be done pretty well, and I'd say it has been, but people do seem to not hype it as much up as the other shows because it hasn't done anything particularly flashy in the way of animation. My counterpoint here is, as nice as a well-made fight scene can be, I don't think it's the only thing that people should be looking at or for. Hell's Paradise is considered to be part of the dark trio of shonen manga alongside Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man. All three of these stories are pretty gritty in their own respect, which tends to soak into the color palette for them. Jujutsu Kaisen is pretty standard coloring-wise, while Chainsaw Man tended to be a much more sort of gray coloring, if you know what I mean. The difference here is that Hell's Paradise doesn't take either of those approaches in any capacity. The dark and bloody story is backdropped by such a wide variety of colors, and most specifically, it's the island. While still in the mainland of Japan, the color palette was pretty simple and standard, but the island reminds us that it's just a completely different beast. I'm sure literally every color under the rainbow is being used on a consistent basis to keep this illusion of wonder while danger lurks underneath, ready to strike at any time. Hell's Paradise has been more of a joy to watch each week than I ever would have expected. I'm not usually into battle shonen all that much, partially for the reasons I had mentioned in this video, but this one has really taken me by surprise a fair bit. The manga is already finished at 127 chapters, so it also seems like this story is going to be pretty concise without lingering around too much, which honestly excites me a bit. It's certainly not the peak of fiction or anything like that, at least not right now, and it may not be as flashy as the other shows are being made, but Hell's Paradise has my full attention. It gives me hope to see mangaka stepping more outside of the box, trying to deliver fresh and interesting takes on the most popular genre in the industry. I'm excited to see where the anime goes from here and what new things will be revealed, and may enhance the words that I've expressed here in this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing for more video essays like this one, and I hope to see you in another. Goodbye.